It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of August 21st, 1998. We've got, as I'm looking at this list here, 8 films to look at, so we have a lot to get to. Let's not waste any more time. Let's just go ahead and jump right on into it. And we'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, Wesley Snipes as Blade. So something we kind of have to remember about Blade is that a couple of years prior to this, Marvel had a Fantastic Four film produced by Roger Corman, and it was supposed to come out in theaters. They had a big push for everything, and then at the last minute they canceled the theatrical release because the movie just ended up being bad. And so bad that it has never gotten an official release except for bootleg copies, and it put a huge dent in Marvel's plans for movie making, much like how Batman and Robin and Steel the previous year put a dent in DC's plans for a little bit. And it would take Marvel a few years to try to get back into the game, and their first attempts to get back into it was with Blade. And, yeah, right from the trailer alone, you could pretty much tell that there was definitely a sense of improvement, and the fact that Marvel hired people who actually read the comics and actually made an effort to make a really good movie. And they did pretty much just that. I mean, it's a film where you have a world where vampires walk the earth, and you have this guy named Blade, played by Wesley Snipes, who has a goal. His goal is to get rid of the world of all vampire evil. When Blade witnesses a vampire bite, Dr. Karen Jensen, he fights away the beast and takes Jensen back to his hideout. Here, alongside Abraham Whistler, played by Chris Christopherson, Blade attempts to help heal Jensen, and the vampire Quinn, who was also attacked by Blade, reports back to his master, Deacon Frost, played by Stephen Dorff, who's planning a huge surprise for the human population. And right off the bat, man, this movie benefits from a fantastic performance by Wesley Snipes, who clearly makes this character his own, and also the movie has so many great visual effects to it that's still hold up at 25 years later. It makes the movie very enjoyable just on those merits alone. They are close to the levels of what Dark City did in terms of making this kind of a visual masterpiece on the level of Blade Runner. They don't quite necessarily get there, but they're pretty damn close. The action sequences are very well done, too. The final climax between Blade and Frost is well done. The cast overall is okay, I guess. Most of them are mostly forgettable. I mean, with the exception of Chris Christopherson as Whistler, I think he's the best thing about the supporting cast. Deacon Frost is a little too over the top for his own good, and his plans for world domination isn't really all that thought out. It's kind of generic in a way, and also in Bush Wright, who plays Karen Jensen, is also kind of pretty bland. It's just playing the sort of love interest to Blade, even though they don't say flat out that she's the love interest. Like, her character doesn't really feel like there's really a need for her to be there. But the other big fault the movie has overall is that it does have a weak story. The elements of the film have no purpose to them whatsoever. You expect much more in the scripting department for a character like this, but I mean, give it to Snipes and Christopherson for working with the material they had, because that made them the most memorable characters in the movie. And while Blade wasn't the thing that completely helped us forget the summer's double whammy of Batman and Robin and Steel, it did prove that comic book movies were far from dead and still had the potential for greatness that they would later show down the road. And Blade was the first film to really show that don't count out comic book movies just yet. I mean, we're not at that point yet where they became great, but we're getting pretty close, so Blade works just on those levels enough to recommend it. It's definitely something you should watch. So, that's Blade, so let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Mark Paul Gosselaar and Tom Edward Scott in the comedy Dead Man on Campus. One of the laziest college movies I've ever seen. This is a film where it centers on the urban legend that a student gets straight A's at their roommates commit suicide. The term is passed by catastrophe. Basically, have two failing friends, played by Mark Paul Gosselaar and Tom Edward Scott, attempting to find a depressed roommate to push them over the edge to receive A's. And I guess in some ways there's a good story around here. I mean, the co-writer is Mike White, who later give us stuff like School of Rock, and then of course gave us The White Lotus. But other than that, though, the movie just doesn't really deliver on all the things that this film could deliver. Like, there's a good concept here, there's a good fun concept here that could be possible, but the film just never really executes it. And Tom Edward Scott and Mark Paul Gosselaar are two really good comedic actors, but they just can't make this material work, and it suffers big time because of it. It's not really an engaging story. It's not really all that funny. It's very dumb, but like I said, I mean, the best thing I can say about the movie is that Tom Everett Scott and Mark Paul Gosselaar have some funny moments. In fact, Mark Paul Gosselaar, he's only a couple years away from playing Zach Morris on Saved by the Bell. I couldn't remember what his name was, but for somebody to go from Saved by the Bell to this, I gotta give him credit. I mean, he made it work. He made it funny. I mean, he did what Elizabeth Berkley couldn't do at first, and really branched out as a leading adult actor here. And he followed this up with NYPD Blue, and he's shown that this guy's got some acting chops, and I gotta give him the credit for that. I mean, he makes this film somewhat redeemable, but not redeemable enough for me to recommend it. It's a film that really is clearly an MTV TV movie blown up for the big screen, and that's pretty much all you can say about it. It's not that great of a movie, and you can easily just skip it. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about Dead Man on Campus. So anyway, on to the next movie, and that is Vanessa Williams in Dance With You. Or as I consider it, watch Vanessa Williams dance around and provocatively with this young Cuban guy. I mean, literally, like the trailer literally is just scenes of Vanessa Williams trying to look sexy while she's dancing to the Latin beat. You basically have a story where you have this young Cuban named Raphael, played by Cheyenne, who's just buried his mother. He comes to Houston to meet his father, John Burnett, played once again by Chris Christopherson, 2 movies he's in this weekend. But the difficult part is that John doesn't know he is Raphael's father, and John runs a dance studio, and everyone prepares for the World Open Dance Championship in Las Vegas, and soon becomes clear that he's a good dancer, and Ruby Sinclair, played by Vanessa Williams, is the biggest hope for the studio at the championship, and you've seen the story done over and over again. It's not really all that new or anything interesting, sadly, but like I said, I feel like it's just a movie to show Vanessa Williams in these provocative risque dance moves and all that type of stuff. It's directed by Randa Hines, who gave us Children of a Lesser God and also The Doctor with William Hurt. But this was kind of towards the end of her career as a director. She only directed a couple of other movies after this, and none that are really memorable per se. But yeah, that's all I really remember from this movie. I just remember seeing Vanessa Williams, like she's literally in positions where she's trying to look sexy. When, I mean, she was already looking sexy back then, but like it just really didn't. It really felt like they were just pushing it on you to try to make you forget that the story is not really all that inventive. It's not really all that clever. And for that, the film suffers kind of big time, and it just really becomes a mostly forgettable film, largely because it is a very forgettable film. So, yeah, not much more to say about Dance With Me, but let's get to probably my personal favorite movie of the weekend. It's Leslie Nielsen in the spoof comedy Wrongfully Accused. So yeah, Wrongfully Accused is a spoof comedy with Leslie Nielsen, and it's written, produced, and directed by Pat Proth, who gave us The Naked Gun as well as Hot Shots. And Leslie Nielsen basically plays a man who's been framed for murder and desperately attempts to expose the true culprits. And as you can tell, the film is a parody of The Fugitive. It's also a parody of other films, other different TV shows at the time. There's Baywatch. I mean, there's Titanic you saw in the trailer. I mean, there's just Anaconda. I mean, there's just a lot of parodies in here. Charlie's Angels, Mission Impossible, Field of Dreams, Braveheart, North by Northwest. I mean, there's a lot of parodies in this movie. And normally this would be seen as a bad thing, especially when you consider the films of Jason Freberg and Aaron Seltzer. But here's the difference, though. This is actually written by people who can make that stuff funny. Pat Proth made this funny. Leslie Nielsen makes this funny. This is a really, really funny movie. There's a lot of great memorable lines in here. Leslie Nielsen just fits the role of this character. The basic ripoff of the character from The Fugitive, Harrison Ford's character. I mean, he plays it to perfection here. I mean, the movie is just so damn funny. There's just so many memorable moments in this movie that are just so damn funny. He's just great in the film. Richard Crenna, who plays basically the Tommy Lee Jones character from The Fugitive, in this is very good. Sandra Bernhard, Kelly LeBrock, Melinda McGraw. Just a really damn good cast. And just, like I said, it's funny. It's a movie that's worthy of being involved, of Leslie Nielsen's involvement, because, as I've said before, Leslie Nielsen can make this stuff funny. He knows how to make these movies work. Even if they're really stupid, even if they're not the greatest movies ever, he makes this stuff funny, and it shows in this film. He gives it his all in here. It's just really, really funny stuff. Like, this is the film that Spy Hard was trying to be. and didn't work. But this is the film that just makes it work because the jokes are much more clever, the humor is much funnier. It doesn't have the bad writing of Friedberg and Seltzer involved. It's just classic Zucker, Abrams, Pat Proft style comedy that you remember from stuff like The Naked Gun and Airplane and Hot Shots. I mean, this is what you expect when you get really good writers to make spoof movies that really are funny. And sadly, this was the last of the dying breed before it was eventually changed over, starting with the Wayans brothers and what they did with Scary Movie a couple years later. But we have some good memories with this one. At least I have some good memories of this one. I love this one a lot. I really cannot recommend this one enough. Seek this movie out if you want to see the last great spoof comedy from back when the spoof comedy actually meant something. Just a phenomenal movie. Not even a phenomenal movie, but a fun movie. I can't recommend it enough. Definitely seek this one out if you haven't seen it already. So that's Wrongfully Accused. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie here, and that is Your Friends and Neighbors. From the same man that gave us In the Company of Men. This is a film where you have a theater inspector named Jerry who starts an affair with Mary and then starts a chain of events that affects their respective partners, Terry and Barry, and other characters in the film, creating a web of relationships. And just kind of like In the Company of Men, you have all these different characters you're following: Amy Brenneman, Aaron Eckhart, Catherine Keener, Natasha Stinsky, Jason Patric, Ben Stiller. And you have all these crazy situations going on here. And this is kind of what you expect from a Neil Butte movie. This is what you expect from the same director that did In the Company of Men. But it's trying to be a little too Woody Allen-ish in a way, especially with some of the designs of like the poster and all that. It feels like a Woody Allen movie, but a decent film nonetheless. I mean, it has a lot of elements that make for a fun little black comedy, and it's very polarizing. You're either going to really get into the black comedy aspects of it, or you're really going to be feeling very unpleasant about it. It's a film that can go either way. Me personally, I kind of enjoyed it for what it was trying to go for. I think it did a pretty good job of what they were trying to deliver. It's not even a fun film. It's a good film. I'd say definitely check it out. If you like In the Company of Men, I think you might like Your Friends and Neighbors. So not much more to say about that one. Actually, not much more to say about the other movies, because I've not seen any one of them, honestly. So we can be real quick on these last three. So let's start with the next movie we have here, and that is Strike, or whatever title they go with this film. Sure, why not? Let's go with All I Want to Do. Pretty young and really good casting here. Kirsten Dunst, Gabby Hoffman, Monica Keena, Heather Matarazzo, Rachel Lee Cook. You basically have a story where Lynn Redgrave as the headmistress. Basically, the story is that it takes place in the 1960s and focuses on several students plotting and sabotaging a proposed merger for the school to go co-ed. And really, just from the look of the trailer, it looks like a typical college sex comedy, but not even a college sex comedy because it's not a college, it's preparatory school. But I don't know. I've never seen it before, like I said, so I don't really know if it's any good. It basically went straight to video when this came out in the U.S., even though it had a limited theatrical release. But yeah, I don't really know anything about it because I haven't seen it before. And the trailer didn't look too bad, but it definitely didn't look great either. So it definitely could be one of those films like it might be a little bit of an underrated gem, but I'm not putting my money on that. So not much more to say about that one. That is Strike, or All I Want to Do, or whatever the hell the title is it's supposed to be. On to the next movie, and that is Next Stop Wonderland. I gotta say, Philip Seymour Hoffman, what he did there was kind of a dickish move, but I kind of admire him for that. If anything, that kind of makes me want to see the movie just to see how that went. But you have Hope Davis here playing a nurse, and her longtime boyfriend Seymour Hoffman has dumped her. And her mother, Piper, played by Blythe Danner, places a personal ad for her. Meanwhile, the film follows the life of Alan, who's a volunteer at a local aquarium who dreams of becoming a marine biologist. So will their paths cross? Or, yeah, of course their paths are going to cross. Why wouldn't they? He's played by Alan Gelfand. And some notable names you may not have seen if you've seen the trailer for this. You see Hope Davis and Philip Seymour Hoffman, Cara Bueno, but Sam Cedar. Sam Cedar may not be a name you're familiar with, but you have definitely heard of if you've seen the show Bob's Burgers. He plays Hugo on Bob's Burgers. He also has a daily political talk show, The Majority Report. But speaking of Bob's Burgers, guess who's also in the movie? Bob Belcher himself, H. John Benjamin, is in the movie. So is Robert Klein. So is Callie Thorne from Rescue Me. I mean, it's directed by Brad Anderson, who gave us The Machinist with Christian Bale. So many pieces there to make for a pretty entertaining movie. I mean, anything H. John Benjamin touches is going to be at least something you need to see. So this is something I want to see at some point. I never got around to seeing it. Plus, that scene in the beginning of the trailer kind of makes me want to see it even more. So I don't know. Maybe one day I'll definitely check this one out, because my curiosity is definitely piqued on that one. So that's Next Stop Wonderland. And so let's go ahead and move on to the last movie we have here, and that is The Eel. So as you can tell, this is a film made in Japan. You basically have a white-collar worker, Yamashita, finding out that his wife has a lover visiting when he's away, suddenly returns home and ends up killing her. So after 8 years in prison, he returns to live in a small village, opens a barber shop. He was trained as a barber in prison, and talks almost to no one except for the eel he befriended in prison. And one day he finds the unconscious body of Keiko, who attempted suicide, and reminds him of his wife. She starts to work at the shop, but he doesn't let her become close to him. Certainly a very interesting film, and only in Japan, I guess. Not much more to say about it, except that this is based off of a novel called On Parole by Akira Yoshimura, which combines elements from this director's 1966 film, The Pornographers. And again, that's pretty much all I really know about this movie. I've never seen it before. It has some stuff there that could make for something very interesting, whether it's actually good or just weird on so many levels, but my interest is kind of piqued, so I don't know. Maybe one day I'll check this one out, but I'm not making any guarantees on that one. So that is The Eel. So on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. Now, tomorrow is a double day here on Time About the Movies, the first of double days, because we're not only going to take a look at the next week, including 54, the star-studded 54, Why Do Fools, the also star-studded Why Do Fools Fall in Love, as well as I Married a Strange Person on this show. But tomorrow is also the premiere of our new show, our spin-off show, Time About the Movies Flashback, where we'll go from November 1988 backwards, because we're basically going backwards from a couple weeks before I was born, from all the way back. We're going to cover most of the 80s. It's going to be a once-a-week show, so you're not only getting one Time About the Movies episode, but you're also getting the premiere of our new spin-off show, Flashback, which will be shown tomorrow, where we'll take a look at some of the films between on November 25th, 1988, including some films that I did not get to cover on the very first episode. So, big day tomorrow, and that's going to be our thing now every Friday as we begin essentially the 10th anniversary of the Reviewing Network website as a whole, because this was the day that I started it within the site before I eventually moved it over to the actual website on Christmas Day of 2013. So a busy day tomorrow. So that's tomorrow, but until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode. Also, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I'm off. I will see you next time. Until then, as always, take care.